is Ana Francisco Sutherland, and I am a Portuguese architect. I was born in Lisbon, but I moved to the UK about 21 years ago. I just published a book, which is very exciting. The name of the book is Modern Buildings in Blackheath and Greenwich, 1950 to 2000. It's mainly a survey of buildings built in the boroughs, in Blackheath and Greenwich in southeast London. And they focus on the post-war period and the second half of the 20th century. So Blackheath is my neighbourhood. So it's where I lived for 18 years, where I raised my children. There's a sense of peace and calm, and it's the community for me that makes the big attraction. You know, I feel I belong, and all my neighbours, we are all a small unit and we are very close to each other. There's space for creativity, and there's also a lot of inspiration, not only on the environment, but also the people. But at the same time, I think it gives you space to be who you are and create your own story. I came up with the idea of writing the book almost since I moved to, almost since I set up on my own in 2015. So I had more time living and working in the neighborhood. I started to see more and more of the buildings of the post-war period, and being more surprised by the quality and how beautiful some of them were and unique. So it started with the idea of a small brochure or a small map, so I could map and share with others the kind of heritage we had in the area. So it kind of grew out of that idea of collecting information, because there was nowhere. There were books, there were some small editions, but nothing where you could see the whole scale of how lovely the buildings were. I was collating a lot of information by studying the buildings that I was working on. I was interviewing architects and their families just out of the interest to learn more about the buildings. And it was a great way to combine the work of basically refurbishing buildings with research, and then with achieving an object at the end of it all. So telling the story of Blackheath, or using architecture to almost define a picture of the culture and of a period, is obviously it's almost like an easy way, because the buildings is what we see now. So walking around, the buildings actually talk with us, isn't it? So I'm a foreigner, so I looked at this environment that the locals took for granted, and first the buildings talk with you. They tell you when was this built or not, or then you have to go and research and clarify. So I think telling a story through buildings is actually, very close to us as the urban space that we all walk and we can see and learn from the buildings and the streets. So the other side was then the people, obviously. So who was building it, who designed this, who paid for it, who wanted it, and discovering the network of the relationships between the people who had the money, people who wanted to build, who owned the sites, and who moved in. The local community has received the book, and also during the research it's been received really well. And I think because we are in living distance, so from that period, so we're not, most of these people involved were interviewed, and if not the people, the owners, the architects, but also their families, the people who grew up in the area. And I think one of the feedbacks I had was that by being a foreigner, I was able to show a phenomenon and putting it all together in a way that the locals couldn't see it, because when you are inside something, you are living it. So you are not looking out, you're not reflecting. So I think they really appreciate the fact that by bringing together all the different people and the different types of buildings, social housing, middle class, one-off luxury, so layering all those aspects meant that they could see themselves in the book. They can see people who they knew, the houses they lived. So yeah, it's been a really great bringing together of memories of living history. I was quite surprised that most of the people saw themselves as guardians of a space because they live in such unique homes, even when they don't need to be listed. They don't need to be already a listed building recognized by everybody as very important. They saw themselves as, I'm looking after this building. This building was designed by someone. It was wanted. Somebody commissioned this. I am looking after it for the next person. So I was quite surprised that was so present in so many people, and they felt I'm just looking after something. It's not my right to change it so much. I really enjoyed that. I was developing trust as we went along. In the end, it was just really beautiful to see the architects' families going and meet the owners' families, and how people who live in their parents' houses, designed by that the parents were so happy and thanking them for the work their parents did. They can see themselves reflected in the book, and the period, the houses they grew up, and the kind of social context. And also you are leaving something to be part of the history of the local area. And the history of the local area was missing a little piece, which was the second half of the 20th century, because in a way it's what's closer to us in time. The feeling that I'm part of that kind of local history, but also it taps on the bigger picture of, the post-war rebuild of Britain and all the bigger issues in London, what was needed then and how people managed to achieve it. At the end, I felt, is this too dry? Is architecture, or the way you describe it, because the process had been so human, is this end too dry and too factual? And I think my conclusion now, and it's not, but because I think people are reading between the lines and layering facts with the human stories behind it. When the book was finally finished, because it was a very long process, and it was all about getting a team together and working with a lot of people, graphic designers, my husband, everybody drawing, going to the area, researching. So it was obviously not it wasn't a lonely route. It was a very team collaborating. The interdependence became a kind of, is a word that I think helps define, a bit of the process of the book, but also the way architects work and the way history works. So the interdependence is how we build. We cannot start from the zero, because we see the styles and the building materials and the cultures, and so we are interdependent with the past. We're interdependent with the buildings we see, and the way we work is a result of that, because it's about the people first, and that developing empathy and trust, and then the buildings. I just felt a big sense of achievement, because it is there, it's out there, it's something that belongs, to other people now.